3 key actions to level up your life. If you want to reach your full potential, you need to level up your life. You need to take your life to the next level, and you need to do that constantly. I know this is easier said than done, but the reward makes it worth the effort. You will have the fulfilling life. So how can we level up our lives? I believe there are 3 keys actions you should take for that. The 3 key actions: upgrade your beliefs. Your beliefs are the force behind your actions. They are powerful because they influence your actions subconsciously. Your beliefs are like trees and your actions are like the fruits. As long as the trees are there, if you keep bearing fruit, that's why it's important that you change your beliefs if you want to change your actions. To do that, you need to identify the negative beliefs that hinder you, the beliefs that could be about your ability, I've never do that, or your environmental situation is hopeless. What are they in your case? Next, you need to replace them with positive beliefs. A good way to do is by changing your self-talk. Make affirmations that fit your positive beliefs. Be disciplined. Your habits can make you or break you. That's why it is essential that you build good habits in your life. Build good habits requires self-discipline. Why? Because you will need to overcome your mood. That way you will do what you're supposed to do regardless of how you feel. So build your self-discipline. Do something every day that you don't want to do. This is a golden rule for acquiring the habit of doing your duty without pain. Take risks. While being disciplined is about doing regular things, taking risks is not doing is about doing new things. Being disciplined is like making your root grow deeper, but taking risks is like spreading your branches into new places. You need both to them to live a full life. Without taking risks, you will only stay in a comfort zone. You will only do things that are comfortable with. Let's say you don't feel comfortable meeting new people. In that case, taking risks means going out there and meet new people. That's uncomfortable, but you do it anyway. Your belief plays an important role here. If you see taking risks as a way to embarrass yourself, you wouldn't do anything. But if you see it as an adventure, you would be eager to do new things. These are 3 key actions to level up your life, upgrade your beliefs, and be disciplined and take risks. Do them and you'll be on your way to reaching your full potential. Very nice. Very, very good. Lord, thought for the day. Those who are immersed in selfishness, egoism, greed, vice, violence, and uprightness will suffer from evil urges in the last days and destroy themselves. The virtues attain self-realization, the unrighteous achieve the naraka, hell. The eye of the onlooker sees the same consumption death, but the goal reached by either is distinct. It is invisible to those around him. The goal is determined by the thoughts that arise in the mind during our last moments. Creation of life is a commendation of God. Is something to be won and earned that is unique. Command the mind, regulate your conduct, keep your heart straight and clear, and then you will get the grace of God. Struggle to realize Atma and visualize God. Even failure in this struggle is nobler than the success in other worldly affairs. Instead of indulging in vain prattle, glorify God and walk in His path and pray to Him. Spend the allotted span of the years in the contemplation and adoration of the Almighty, not to preserve praise of the feeble or the futile and the weak. Life is an opportunity afforded to each, not to eat and drink, but to achieve something nobler and grander, to master oneself and emerge in the reality. Fools who cannot grasp the truth, those who cannot recognize divinity and the power of the God, and who have no faith in the God, live in the delusion that the plans will save them, and that they can triumph through their own efforts. The fact is, not even the smallest success can be won without God's grace. Though it is true that we should not sit with folding hands, believing that the thing will accomplish itself if and when God wills. Human effort is essential, and if everyone must put in the sincere work. You must use the strength and the skill that you are endowed with the resolve to proceed with the task, laying the responsibility for success on God, for without the grace of the God, all effort will be rendered fruitless. Habit with Him was all the test of the truth. It must be right. I've done it from the youth. When you attain a fulfillment, your life will be saturated in an excelled ananda, divine bliss, and you will experience oneness of thought, emotion, and knowledge with all. You will be in ecstasy, immersed in the one and the only eternal divine principle, for that alone can confer joy. That is the genuine joy, that there is no other. God is the embodiment of the eternal undiminished joy. This loyal to God, accept the action that God is the highest source of joy. It's been feeling sickly. So having home to myself felt like being true to my divine within. I said, I'm sorry to God within, told him how much I love you, love my dear. But every time I've shown my love to him, he has only made it so worse for me. That I'm paranoid, fearful, go crazy, holding it all within. Well, just now I stopped loving him, just so I can set myself free from all the paranoid, fear, and the craziness, for otherwise his hatred kills me. Feeling better, not feeling nothing at all. But that nothingness makes me not want to do nothing, care for nothing, be nothing, not give a damn about life, growth, well-being. And then I get into depression. It's impossible to get out of it for laziness. It's much better to deal with than dealing with dear's hatred, his madness, his anger, his frustration, his curses and screaming. Now shut my eyes and go on, express yourself and look deep within. For a journal writing is it being true to yourself, looking in your soul, connecting to your deepest fears and desires. So you can on one end deal with depression, on the other ecstasy, the joy of well-being, the enthusiasm, the God within, so powerful you feel mighty strong, be the pillar of for dear support for home, guiding, strong will, working hard, feeling useful, just so good. Feeling good is no good if my dear is not feeling good in my happiness. Now he has understood this very well. Why is she so happy? If I'm unhappy and I say the same thing repeatedly, how can I be happy when my dear is so unhappy? How can I rest when my dear is working so hard? How can I be lazy when my body is tired, when he is pushing himself so far, when he is so tired? Every support, care, consent, right suggestion, he bombards me with the evil intentions. His anger at every right move of mine makes me want to do wrong, just only to win his support, knowing so well in my heart that he knows truly in his heart. I mean him that most best. His well-being is my main concern. Even when I speak to Krish, I repeat the same. Your father loves you at most, cares for you the most. Forget all this. It's only madness. Bina, you would better be leaving him. With his misery, or misery loves company. So he's making you miserable with his madness, anger, hatred now. You cannot change no one until they themselves want to change. Right now, you need to take a hold of yourself. For you are not 25, you are 25 years son is acting retired and you are working overtime to destroy your health and happiness, spiritual powers and well-being. Yes, I'm not going to work. I'm called for and for nothing is happening. Journal writing today is my main concern, to communicate with my higher power. But good Lord God, I'll tell you, I shall stop right here, move on to the next mail to continue, for I'm truly very, very afraid. I'm afraid that my dear knows I love him and he loves it. Wing is my strength. He should destroy me completely, and I'm sorry to say I cannot, Lord. You, Lord, when I don't feel no love in my heart for my dear. Many a times I don't even want to love Kursh if I cannot love my dear. I don't even love myself when I don't love my dear. Why, God? Should I love him when he doesn't love me a bit even? It's a shame. Why? It's much easier to just give up on all. It's just forget everything and let it all go. It's no win situation anyway, fighting a losing battle. I have already lost him to two women, rather. They have three men and I have none. At least, if that's making my dear happy, at least releasing him, I could give him happiness at last. I succeeded in being a failure. God, I'm not a failure, you know that. I'm very, very strong woman, very powerful. Everyone who sees my inner strength is astonished. Even yesterday when I don't do nothing in Manhattan, I went out to my work and made my day with godliness, compassion, and willpower. I even made great makeovers for two elderly women who just came from hospital, from head to eyebrows, lashes, nails, every minute, the very pressing the Lord for me said, I have the power to saving souls. Now I have released myself from the loving mind dear. I have now so much love to share among all, for love is like a bounty energy, like air. You cannot live without air, but each can hold only enough. As to how big they are, anyone would burst the balloon. any more would burst the balloon. It will break the balloon. Only the master knows how much love to put in all. He put too much in me and always trying to put it my all in my dear. And I'm only bursting him balloon. Too late, but at least now I know I need to go out more, mingle and mix more, make more relationships, contact outings, connect with different resources, take on more challenges. Where all my air love would be utilized to its best, shared among all. Just as we cannot rest at peace until we reach our potential, so we must learn to share our all with others, for it grows and flourish. A teacher has all the knowledge to teach even a master, but a kindergarten child, she will have only give the basic ABCs. So a teacher cannot teach until the child is ready to receive. We do have to keep a good account of how much to who, when, where, and what for, why. For knowledge in itself is nothing, is the use of it which counts. Just as love in itself is nothing, giving love to the elderly woman from hospital took them to God's presence. Loving dear makes him be devil to me. I would rather be the devil to me than have to hold the devil within. Nothing. I would rather he be a devil to me than have to hold the devil within. Nothing in itself makes a sense until we learn to make a right use of it. Little of love air is in the person, you make them fly, and it's the most beautiful thing in the world to see a flying balloon. But do we see that the flying balloon in the sky? Hardly none ever. So the lesson to be learned here is to learn to let go of love. For love to fly, fill it in and let it fly. Find its destination, blue sky. The universe is attracting and reaching out, glowing, flying. It would bring happiness elsewhere. You trying the balloon with a string, then if it forcefully breaks free, you will be sad, upset, angry, frustrated. So just let it fly. Some other flying balloon would come your way. Be happy letting it go. Let the kites fly. Some will certainly be cut, but on falling down shall bring happiness to some. Don't cry over your kite, or you'll forget flying kites. Flowing fountains, flying kites, loving people with bliss air in them, flying, touching the skies. Everything is in a flow. Flow of knowledge, flow of love, flow of money, flow of knowledge, ideas, God. You are flowing the garden of our souls with this beautiful thought of letting go, letting God. God is the generator, operator, and the destroyer of all evil. June 10, 8, 2008. Consolidate all your assets is a joke now. Nobody can sell any properties. Banks have stopped giving loans altogether. Last time, 2 years ago, too. Property Kumar bought was all cash. Real estate nowadays, agents wants to see bank statements before even proceeding. Nowadays, we pay so much money on taxes, insurance, utilities, and tax that investments have become liabilities. Kids go to college only to go into debt. Credit cards, companies are not issuing any more cards. China has absolutely stopped dealing with on credit. Businesses are closing down. Every day, the new businesses are just to be self-employed. When I opened my shop was for that very purpose, for there were no jobs and working on commission or rental. Felt better off renting my own, and just too I got a very little spot just for $400 a month. Kumar feels stuck here, for which cannot even keep even one paper in his safe, and applies his mind to even little matters. At least we are blessed that we have 3 rental incomes coming in. As you said, we should communicate. I tried, but truly I even feel disturbed by economy, and he feels only overly busy to look at the facts, running at all times, and I'm of no help to him, for we think different. When I tell him don't get in any more muddle, and before you make decisions, be clear, clarify with people before giving them jobs. To fix the Van Nostrand property, we cannot afford no more than to pay $300 for 2 people per day. In this way, we should extend the work to 3 days instead of, say, $500 for the job, and try and finish in 2 days. That's my budget. If not, find affordable people and prices. I'm with you 100%. but let's give it our best shot, for times are not the same. Don't push yourself too hard. Instead, let's hold strong as a family. I have become pretty laid back lately, for it's no use exerting yourself so far when Kush is so slow and I'm feeling useless. For you don't have been 5 minutes a day with me. I need time. I try to rest and meditate by him. He jumps on screaming at me. That's why you want to sleep, or bringing movies from the library. Don't you have things to do? God, bye. You're very right. We fear the dollar is going to devalue very badly too. I thought a book recently, Dollar Meltdown. Without reading, I lost it. The fine is $28. Library work. Every small loss like this seems upsetting. Kush doesn't understand any seriousness when Kumar tells him anything about finances, says we'll take money out of our locker. But that totally makes Kumar shocked that Kush has so absolutely no concept of reality and life. He's so lost in his world, we'll have to take care of him. Even the girl in Madras is not interested in him no more. So for him to be in India is out of question. He says, what for? I'm not trying to tell you anything new. Why people leave India for better life, right? Similar way, why people leave America, of course, better life. I just try to convince you. India is a place where you can lead better life for the rest of your life. Very nice. Lord bless us. Looking at the photos, pictures on our wall, dogs and the cats now gone. Each has their place and the space in my heart. The story sad and sweet. The first and the sweet one. Our unadoptable shy girl that taught us how to love. Our big grey boy, more dog than cat, dog cat he has, our smiling blue dog. Loved to play more than eat, bouncing and jumping, and to the last, the old guy that passed through for only a while and that was always sad. We gave him what we could. That little sweet girl that you brought home one day, a rescue that came and went over ever so fast and stole our hearts in a brief time. And now there are two dogs and 2 cats, puppies and kittens. Once upon a time, each reminding to love for life is too short sometime. I returned to the river of the times of my life. I thought of my father and I cried, for I could not remember the color of his eyes. I tried and I tried to conjure his memories fading into the past, dissolved in the river of time. So I sat by my river and I cried. I remember the day after when everything was not reality inescapable. A nightmare we knew would never end, but what was then today? Just like all those before, a new day dawns, and amongst the residue of the pain, life emerged. A new wind today holds, I cannot say, and therein may be what some call grace. A friend died the other day alone, his body cold, not found for days. I saw his struggle, sometimes near, sometimes far, but I recognized that, for it looked so much like my own. I'm here and he's not. The difference between him and me, who knows? I only know that I recognize the look in his eyes, for I saw the same eyes once upon a time in the dirty mirror on the bathroom wall. When you notice someone does something toxic the first time, don't wait for the second time before you address it and cut them off. Many survivors are used to wait and see tactic, which only leaves them vulnerable for a second attack. As your boundaries get stronger, the wait time gets shorter. You never have to justify your intuition. Blame shifting and projecting their malignant traits onto their partners during conversations while using a false charismatic self to make the victims look like the crazy ones. It's almost as if they hands off their own traits or shortcomings to their victim, as if to say, here, take my pathology, I don't want it. Narcissists do not choose us because we are like them. They choose us because we are the light to their darkness, regardless of any of their vulnerabilities. We exhibit the gorgeous trait of empathy, compassion, emotional intelligence, or authentic confidence. That's their fragile ego and false masks would never achieve. A child was being abused by his parents. It didn't stop loving his parents. It stops loving itself. The fact of the matter is, if we have been in an abusive relationship, you don't really know what the experience it is like. Furthermore, it's quite hard to predict what you would do in the same situation. I find that the people most vocal about what they would have done in the same situation often have no clue what they are talking about. They have never been in the same situation themselves. By invalidating the survivors' experience, these people are defending an image of themselves and their identity with a strain, not realizing the abuse survivors are often the strongest individuals out there. They have been belittled, criticized, demeaned, devalued, and yet they still survive. The judgmental ones often have little or no life experience regarding this situation, yet they feel quite comfortable silencing the voices of the people who have actually been there. Narcissist gaslights you, so you begin to gaslight yourself into thinking what you are feeling, hearing, seeing, and experimenting isn't true. The narcissist partner can manipulate you into thinking that perhaps that hurtful comment really was just a joke and that their infidelity was just a one-time thing. Many of these partners engage in pathological lying and rewrite reality on a daily basis to suit their needs and to conceal their manipulative agenda. What's important to remember is that while human beings in general can engage in toxic behaviors from time to time, abusers use these manipulation tactics as a dominant mode of communication. Toxic people such as malignant narcissists, psychopaths, and those who with antisocial traits engage in the maladaptive behavior in a relationship that ultimately exploit, demean, and hurt their ultimate partners, family members, and friends. So, for those who think that abuse survivors can simply logically process their situation and get out of and over the situation easily, think again. The parts of your brain that deal with planning, cognition, learning, and decision making become disconnected with the emotional parts of your brain. They can cease to talk each other when an individual becomes traumatized. It usually takes a great deal of effort, resources, and strength and validation addressing bullying on all the levels of body and mind for a survivor to become more fully empowered to begin to heal from this form of trauma. Dissociation leaves us disconnected from our memories, our identities, our emotion. It breaks the trauma into digestible components so that different aspects of the trauma get stored in different compartments of our brain. What happens as a result is that the information from the trauma becomes disorganized and we are not able to integrate these pieces into a coherent narrative and process trauma fully until, hopefully, with the help of a validating trauma-informed counselor who guides us to the appropriate therapies best suited to our needs, we confront the trauma and triggers in the safe place. Narcissist abusers first idealize their partners, flattering them excessively, giving them all sorts of attention in the form of the constant tests and gifts. They share secrets and the stories with you to create a special bond. This technique also enables you to feel if you can share the deepest insecurity and desires with them later. They will use your disclosure as ammunition and pick at your weak spots to regain a sense of psychological control. Information was key. Once you begin waking up to what has been happening around you the whole time, you can begin stopping the cycle, which anchors the narcissist as to an interesting boiling point. In the book Psychopath Free, the method of triangulation is discussed as a popular way to narcissist maintains control over your emotions. Triangulation consists in bringing the presence of another person into the dynamic of the relationship, whether it be an ex-lover, a current mistress, a relative, or a complete stranger. Their manipulation is psychologically and emotionally devastating and very dangerous, especially considering the brain circuitry for emotional and physical pain are one and the same. What a victim feels when they are punched in the stomach can be similar to the pain a victim feels when they are verbally, emotionally abused, and the effects of the narcissist abuse can be crippling and long-lasting, even resulting in symptoms of PTSD and complex PTSD. Manipulators are quite gifted at provocation. As they learn more about you, they are investigating your weak spots and getting their comments towards what they know will hurt you the most. Knowing you are triggered by their comments gives them a sadistic sense of satisfaction that elevates their secret sense of inferiority and strokes their delusions of crime to control and aptitude. Having control over your emotion also gives them the power to effectively manipulate you and convince you that you don't deserve any better. Covert narcissists blind you with your saccharine sweetness. They present a perfect public image, routinely go on their knees to pray say their mantras on their yoga mats, preach peace and compassion, all the while plotting on how to best stab you in the back. In some ways, covert narcissists are worse than the overt ones. At least overt ones are open about how awful they really are. Gaslighting their partners into believing that abuse isn't real by denying, minimizing, or rationalizing the abuse. This includes deflecting any conversations about accountability, using circular conversations and word salads in order to avoid being held accountable for their actions. To any survivor who may be doubting whether what they are experiencing is truly abuse, they remember that emotional, verbal, psychological abuse will never be and should never be considered part of the messy equal of the normal relationship. As both mental health professionals and survivors can attest to the traumatic high and lows of being with a narcissist, sociopath, the psychopath are not the natural highs and lows of a regular relationship. The suggestion is quite damaging to society and to survivors all around the world. Quote from a survivor: read up the psychology of abuse, listen to music, being alone to process without chatter. You're really outside doing something physical, doing these things helps you believe you can do anything. Share my story without shame. People pleasing does make it easier to ignore the red flags of abusive relationship at the very early stage, especially with covert manipulators. You can also become conditioned to continually please if we are used to walking on eggshells around our abuser. Triangulation, health, relationship thrive on security, and healthy ones are filled with provocation, uncertainty, and fidelity. Narcissists like to manufacture love triangles and to bring in the opinions of others to validate their own point of view. The more power they have over your emotion, the less likely you will trust your own reality and the truth that the abuse you are enduring. Knowing the manipulative tactics and how they work to erode your sense of self can arm you with the knowledge of what you're facing. At the very least, develop a plan and to retain control over your own life and away from the toxic people. Taking back over control and power means seeking validating professional help for the abuse we have suffered, detaching from the people in our lives, learning more about the techniques of abuse, finding support networks, sharing our story to raise awareness, and finding appropriate healing modalities that can enable us to transcend and thrive after the abuse. The narcissist cultivated the need for his or her validation and approval early on in the idealization phase. By making you dependent on his or hers, they condition you to seek the excessive admiration that only they could dole out. Now, as they devalue you, you use your need for validation to their advantage to withdraw, frequently appearing sullen at every opportunity and conveying every generous thing you do for them as a failure on your part that falls short of your ludicrous expectation. Nothing can meet their high standards, and everything wrong will be pointed out. In fact, even the things they do wrong shall be pinned on you. At the same time, relationship with the narcissist is also a catalytic root awakening into the fact that people are rarely who they portray themselves to be. As knowledge, as experiences, insight, and wisdom, perhaps the kind you wish you didn't have. Sometimes it's even social capital, enabling you to navigate even more intelligently with more discernment than ever before. You are wide-eyed and vigilant. You see what other people don't see. You learn about boundaries and your values. You recognize the value of authentic people, those rare breeds who wear their hearts on their sleeve and bleed integrity instead of exploit that quality in others. It doesn't have to be a waste of time to happen through this experience, even when validating how painful it is to the fact that no one should ever have to go through it. When you have been through something horrific like this, at the very least, you are owned the fruits of his wisdom and the drive it provides you to kick some serious ass. The narcissist relies on jealousy as a powerful emotion that can cause you to compete for his or her affection. So provocative statements like, I wish you would be more like her, or he wants me back into his life, I don't know what to do, are designed to trigger the abuse victim into competing and feeling insecure about his or her position in the narcissist's life. Triangulation is a way of narcissist maintains control and keeps you in check. You're so busy competing for his or her attention that you're less likely to be focusing on the red flags within the relationship and looking for ways to get out of the relationships all along. See, narcissists don't truly feel empathy for this. So during the discard phase, they often feel absolutely nothing for you except the excitement of having exhausted another source of supply. You were just another source of narcissistic supply. So do not fool yourself into thinking that the magical connection you existed in the beginning was in any way real. Their manipulation is psychological and emotionally devastating and very dangerous, especially considering the brain circuitry for emotional physical pain are one and the same. What a victim feels when they are punched in the stomach can be similar to the pain a victim can feel when they are verbally, emotionally abused, and the effects of narcissistic abuse can be crippling, long lasting, even resulting in symptoms of PTSD and complex PTSD. Meditation will be one of the most powerful tools in your self-care toolbox because it's something that you can do for the rest of your life on your own at any time, for any duration of time, for no cause. Mindfulness, which involves turning our attention back to the present moment, is essential to refocusing our mind, body, and spirit from the past and placing it solidly into the reality of the here and the now. Many abuse victims don't wish to let the abusers move on to the next victim after terrorizing them because they fear that the next person might be treated better. They are confirming their own sense of worthlessness that was instilled by the abuser in the first place. They may also have the unending sense of needing a real apology or seeing a karma at work before they feel they can truly let go. Mindful emotional regulation increases emotional awareness by reducing midline prefrontal reactivity and more sustained limbic network activation. I once read a book that described a certain form of narcissism as a near perfect embodiment of evil. If so, the person suffering from such should be treated as though they were possessed, for the pain inside the world is even greater than the pain outside. Imagine a life without even wonder, without love for the other, with no sense of anyone other than yourself, is a form of psychological hell. I once put in the question of how much a person could be saved. I could not think of the means of repentance that such a personality could undertake. It was for me one of the life's unsolvable mysteries, perhaps a salvation that can happen within the depths of the soul, trapped within the confines of its own endless shame. I have seen many head praises written about narcissists. They are probably the most poisonous relationships ever encountered in a test of compassion. I think to put it oneself in their shoes and to imagine the agony of such an existence. It's an act of true compassion to pray earnestly for their salvation and for our own deliverance from our refusals to love. It is also a reminder that despite the toxic nature of some shame, there is a core of healthy shame that is utterly necessary to our existence as creatures and our ability to love. It reveals to us both that we are and what we are not, both are equally necessary. Seven things you'll never see a narcissist do. Because of their fundamental sense of worthlessness and compensatory grandiosity, narcissists play by different rules than the rest of us. Here's a short list. Never do list. Apologize. Admitting wrong is uncomfortable for most people, but the give and take in relationship and times calls for an acknowledgement of fault. Healthy people usually know that they owe an apology and are willing to give, whether it be interpreted failure to deliver on a promise is something hurtful or lose our temper beyond reasonable bounds. We offer an apology to show respect and caring. The narcissist, on the other hand, never apologizes, seeing himself as above reproach. He never feels he has done wrong. His sense of superiority over others reinforces his belief that other superior beings are always to blame for anything that goes awry. Even if the narcissist is actually responsible, sometimes narcissists express false apologies, which are designed to deflect blame back onto others. An example of false apology is, I'm sorry, you are so sensitive and can't handle real life. Take responsibility. 2. Above all, the narcissist repudiates responsibility because she has built her identity against the fundamental feelings of invalidation. She's intensively sensitive to shame and blame. Responsibility of any kind triggers the narcissist's threat of exposure to criticism. The narcissist is so averse to responsibility, she systematically stages a life to avoid it and becomes masterful at denying and projecting it onto others, particularly those closest within her sphere of power, her partner and children. 3. Self-respect. Narcissists are terrified of their own shadows. The long-hidden child within who has irreparably damaged, and those feelings of inadequacy the narcissist constantly overcompensates for. For the narcissist, self-reflection is a dangerous territory to be avoided at all costs because it represents unbearable vulnerability. This is why the narcissists rarely seek therapy, avoid honest communication, refuse accountability, and readily resort to raging sense defensive outbursts to blunt the truth. Forgive me. For the same reason, the narcissist does not apologize. He will never forgive. He also never forgives. To him, everyone represents a potential threat to be defeated, and he's hyper vigilant to be perceived or, more rarely, real attack. This is a battle zone, and the narcissist is always fighting for survival. Narcissists regard any kind of hurt as cause for retaliation and revenge if someone apologizes to them, often in a misguided attempt to end conflict. Narcissists see it as a proof of either superiority and make their opportunity to further punish that person for whenever he and she may or may not have done wrong. Genuine forgiveness is not part of the narcissist's emotional lexicon, fundamentally because the narcissist cannot forgive himself. Why act selflessly? Selflessness is the antithesis of narcissism. Because the narcissist lacks empathy or has an inflated sense of entitlement, acting selflessly is beyond her compensation. At the core, the narcissist has nothing to do with because she has a survival is at the stake and nothing else matters. Narcissists, by definition, are locked up in an inward spiral of unmet